My name is Ethan Harper, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been measured against the rise of my older brother, Brian. While I scraped paint off thrift store canvases in the corner of my rented attic studio, Brian collected diplomas, accolades, and the unwavering admiration of our parents, Richard and Elaine. They displayed his framed medical school acceptance letter above the fireplace like a religious relic, while my first juried exhibition postcard was magnet to the back of the fridge beneath a grocery list. I told myself it didn't bother me. I told myself I was fine being the obscure footnote in the Harper family narrative. But the day of Brian's wedding, January 17th, a Saturday so crisp the clouds looked laser-cut, proved that even footnotes have breaking points. The ceremony was set in Foxglove Manor, an estate so sprawling it had its own postal code. I arrived early, clutching a hand-illustrated card I'd made for the newlyweds, the ink still drying on the filigree. Before I could cross the marble foyer, Mom intercepted me like a linebacker. She pressed a plastic badge into my palm. "Put this on, sweetheart," she said, voice sugared but eyes glinting. The badge read looser in bold Helvetica, misspelled, as if humiliation weren't enough without a typo. I laughed, thin and brittle. "Is this some kind of bachelor party leftover?" I asked. Dad materialized beside her, straightening his bow tie. "Lighten up, Ethan. You always say artists need to embrace irony." Then, as though delivering a casual afterthought, he added, "The caterer is short-staffed. Be useful and circulate the champagne, will you?" Useful. The word lodged under my ribs. I scanned the vast ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet rehearsing Vivaldi, cousins already angling for selfies with Brian. My brother ambled toward us, tuxedo immaculate, hair movie star perfect. He glanced at the badge, offered a non-committal shrug, and said, "Just roll with it. Little bro, don't create drama today." Drama. Apparently, my mere discomfort was drama, yet their public mockery was comedy. I clipped the badge onto my lapel because arguing felt pointless, because the Harper hierarchy was older than I was. Hours blurred. I ferried flutes of Prosecco across parquet floors, nodding like a paid extra in someone else's dream. Guests mistook me for performance art. One bridesmaid tipped me $5 and asked if my character had a backstory. I almost told her that my character once spent 3 nights awake painting a mural Brian promised to hang in his downtown apartment, only to discover it folded in a closet months later. Instead, I smiled, pocketed the bill, and kept moving. Around dusk, a rumor drifted through the crowd. The groom's brother was working undercover to spy on service quality for the event planning blog he supposedly wrote. Someone else whispered I was a disgraced cousin doing court-ordered community service. My name is Ethan Harper, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been measured against the rise of my older brother, Brian. While I scraped paint off thrift store canvases in the corner of my rented attic studio, Brian collected diplomas, accolades, and the unwavering admiration of our parents, Richard and Elaine. They displayed his framed medical school acceptance letter above the fireplace like a religious relic, while my first juried exhibition postcard was magnet to the back of the fridge beneath a grocery list. I told myself it didn't bother me. I told myself I was fine being the obscure footnote in the Harper family narrative. But the day of Brian's wedding, January 17th, a Saturday so crisp the clouds looked laser-cut, proved that even footnotes have breaking points. The ceremony was set in Foxglove Manor, an estate so sprawling it had its own postal code. I arrived early, clutching a hand-illustrated card I'd made for the newlyweds, the ink still drying on the filigree. Before I could cross the marble foyer, Mom intercepted me like a linebacker. She pressed a plastic badge into my palm. "Put this on, sweetheart," she said, voice sugared but eyes glinting. The badge read looser in bold Helvetica, misspelled, as if humiliation weren't enough without a typo. I laughed, thin and brittle. "Is this some kind of bachelor party leftover?" I asked. Dad materialized beside her, straightening his bow tie. "Lighten up, Ethan. You always say artists need to embrace irony." Then, as though delivering a casual afterthought, he added, "The caterer is short-staffed. Be useful and circulate the champagne, will you?" Useful. The word lodged under my ribs. I scanned the vast ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, a string quartet rehearsing Vivaldi, cousins already angling for selfies with Brian. My brother ambled toward us, tuxedo immaculate, hair movie star perfect. He glanced at the badge, offered a noncommittal shrug, and said, "Just roll with it. Little bro, don't create drama today." Drama. Apparently, my mere discomfort was drama, yet their public mockery was comedy. I clipped the badge onto my lapel because arguing felt pointless, because the Harper hierarchy was older than I was. Hours blurred. I ferried flutes of Prosecco across parquet floors, nodding like a paid extra in someone else's dream. Guests mistook me for performance art. One bridesmaid tipped me $5 and asked if my character had a backstory. I almost told her that my character once spent 3 nights awake painting a mural Brian promised to hang in his downtown apartment, only to discover it folded in a closet months later. Instead, I smiled, pocketed the bill, and kept moving. Around dusk, a rumor drifted through the crowd. The groom's brother was working undercover to spy on service quality for the event planning blog he supposedly wrote. Someone else whispered I was a disgraced cousin doing court-ordered community service. Every theory was more palatable than the truth that I was there at my parents' behest, playing the clown so their narrative remained tidy. When the photographer organized family portraits on the grand staircase, Mom waved me aside like a waiter. Aunt Lillian, half-blind without her glasses, asked where her favorite little artist was. Mom answered, "He's busy making himself useful." The shutter clicked. Flash. Forever immortal without me. During dinner, Brian toasted Charlotte, his new wife, radiant in lace, and thanked everyone who had shaped him into the man he was today. He singled out my parents, mentors, even his childhood Labrador. My name did not pass his lips. I stood at the room's edge, holding a tray of steak knives, each reflection a funhouse mirror of who I might have been. That's when Uncle Hank cornered me near the cloakroom. "Ethan, isn't it?" he asked, squinting. "Quick question. Are you actually related to this circus?" Ceremony lights flickered overhead, somewhere between halo and interrogation. "Yes," I said, voice flat. "I'm the punchline." He frowned, opened his mouth, then closed it, retreating with the air of a man who had just violated a private boundary. Something inside me cracked, not loudly. More like thin ice fracturing under invisible weight. I pictured the badge, the cameras, the whispered jokes. I pictured every time Brian introduced me as the creative one, with the same tone you'd use for an eccentric pet. I thought about the mural, the fridge postcard, the years. The quartet launched into the first dance. I set my tray on a sideboard and walked toward the stage where the MC was lining up microphones for speeches. The man tried to shoo me away. I pushed past with the calm of inevitability. When I tapped the mic, feedback shrieked, silencing chatter. Hundreds of faces pivoted toward me, curiosity sharpening into collective anticipation. "My name is Ethan Harper," I began, heart thrumming against my ribs like a trapped gull. "I'm Brian's younger brother. Maybe you didn't recognize me tonight. I've been busy bussing your tables." Tittering died. I heard the rustle of silk, saw Charlotte clutch Brian's arm. I was asked to wear this badge. I lifted the plastic square. Looser, spelled wrong, because apparently even my failures deserve typos. Nervous laughter from someone near the back. A hush swallowed it. For years, I believed love was conditional, that being different meant being disposable. But tonight, watching my parents reduce their son to a joke for sport, I realized the joke isn't on me. It's on anyone who confuses conformity with worth. My voice steadied, louder. I'm an artist. I paint stories you can't frame in a diploma. And I refuse, from this moment, to apologize for existing off-script. I turned to Brian. "Congratulations. I hope your marriage is kinder than the family playbook we grew up with. And if defending me felt like an inconvenience tonight, maybe revisit the oath you took in med school about doing no harm." Gasps. A wine glass shattered somewhere. I unclipped the badge, placed it on the piano, and walked down the aisle of silent guests. Each step felt lighter, as though gravity negotiated new terms. Outside, winter air carved fire into my lungs. I kept walking past valets, through iron gates, onto the deserted country road where my beat-up hatchback waited. Tiny snowflakes caught in my hair like seeds of yet unwritten canvases. The next morning, my phone buzzed incessantly. Not from Mom or Dad, they maintained radio silence, but from guests. Apologies flooded in like overdue tides. Among them, a voicemail from Aunt Lillian. "Honey, I saw what they did. You deserve so much better." I saved it, proof that at least one adult possessed a working moral compass. Late afternoon, an unfamiliar number lit up. "Ethan, this is Samuel Brooks. We met briefly years ago at the Riverton Arts Gala. I'm Charlotte's great-uncle. My stomach nodded, expecting reprimand. Instead, he said, I own Forge Gallery in Boston. I watched your speech from Table 4. Frankly, it was the most honest art piece of the night. If your canvases hold half that courage, I want to see them. I have a spring slot open. I nearly dropped the phone. We arranged a meeting. I packed my car with paintings still sticky from midnight brushstrokes and drove east, chasing the Atlantic horizon. Boston greeted me with salt wind and brick alleyways echoing with possibility. Forge Gallery's white walls became a blank inhale ready for my exhale of color. During installation, Samuel asked, Do you regret what you said? I considered. Regret would imply I spoke too soon. If anything, I spoke 27 years late. Opening night, critics, collectors, students, strangers. They stared at my canvases, stormy palettes of familial hierarchies, fractured dinner tables, a lone figure wearing a misspelled badge melting into gold leaf. People wept. People debated. People bought. I rented a small loft in South End, exposed brick, squeaky pipes, perfect. Every dawn, I climbed the fire escape to watch sun bleed over the harbor, reminding myself that light is most dramatic when it breaks free of shadow. Weeks later, Dad emailed a single sentence, We need to talk. I deleted it. Mom sent a photo of Brian holding his newborn nephew. I hadn't known Charlotte was pregnant, and wrote, Your brother hopes you'll be godfather. I stared at the screen until words blurred, then closed the message without replying. A boundary once invisible had become ironclad. Crossing it required more than nostalgia. Months passed. My exhibition traveled to Chicago, then Seattle. Critics coined phrases like cathartic luminism, as if taxonomy could tame what lived on the canvas. I painted feverishly subway commuters, storm drains, lovers on fire escapes, all the lives that flourish outside parental spotlights. One humid July evening, I received a handwritten note on Forge Gallery letterhead. Your work reminds me that silence isn't peace, it's the room where shame grows. Thank you for opening a window. No signature. I pinned it above my desk, a lighthouse stitched in ink. Occasionally, memories ambushed me, Dad teaching Brian to ride a bike while I traced tire tracks in chalk alongside. Mom applauding Brian's science fair volcano while my portrait of the school janitor curled unjudged on a cafeteria table. Those scenes used to sting. Now they served as compost for creativity. Nothing fertilizes art like surviving impressionable wounds. One night, scrolling social media, I stumbled on a wedding album Charlotte posted months late. Every photo radiated curated perfection except one. Slide 47. The piano, empty glass beside it, and a plastic badge reading looser, its misspelling luminous beneath fairy lights. Thousands of likes, comments praising the quirky prop. No one knew it wasn't a prop. I saved the image, printed it, glued it onto a fresh canvas, and painted around it, a swirling cosmos that swallowed the word until only the outline remained, ghostly and hollow. Forge Gallery displayed it as centerpiece for my second solo show. I titled the piece Grammar of Shame. The night it debuted, a teenager approached, tears bright. They call me the weird kid at school, she whispered. Your painting makes me feel accurate. Not normal accurate. I hugged her because I knew accuracy is a rarer mercy than normalcy. After the crowd dispersed, Samuel raised a glass of seltzer to the one they tried to brand. We clinked. Funny, I said. I used to think the badge defined me. Now it's just material. Outside, Boston hummed, sirens, laughter, gulls arguing over crusts. I inhaled city breath and exhaled belonging. No badge, no staged hierarchy, just the quiet, seismic fact of self-respect. Richard and Elaine Harper still appear in my inbox occasionally, sending family newsletters. Brian's second child arrived last spring. They named her Grace. I painted a small abstract titled Grace in Indigo and mailed it unsigned. I don't know if they hung it. I do know I didn't need them to. Sometimes, late at night, I replay the moment I placed the badge on the piano, the hush, the brittle reverence of a room realizing its script had been rewritten. That silence was my first applause. I'm not the family's shame. I'm the chapter they didn't plan to publish, yet readers flag with sticky notes. If you ever receive a badge meant to shrink you, remember, plastic snaps easily. Wear it once, study its weight, then break it apart and melt it into pigment. Paint your name over their punchline until even the punchline forgets its own cruelty. My name is Ethan Harper. I create. I rise. I sign every canvas on the back so the front can belong to whoever needs the mirror most. And I will never, ever spell loser wrong. The autumn after Grammar of Shame opened. A cream-colored envelope slid under my loft door. Inside was an invitation printed on heavy cardstock. Richard and Elaine Harper cordially request your presence at their 35th wedding anniversary gala, to be held at the Cedar Ridge Country Club. I laughed out loud. Somewhere between the salad course and the commemorative slideshow, they apparently intended to fold me back into the family veneer. At the bottom, in faint script, Brian had pinned, "It would mean a lot if you came." I folded the invitation into a paper airplane and sent it sailing from my fire escape railing. It spiraled down 4 stories, landed in a puddle, and floated like a drowned swan. For a week I thought that was the end of it. Then Mom called. Her voice was softer than I remembered, like someone speaking through quilt batting. "Your father and I have been seeing a counselor," she began, skipping small talk as if nervous it might expire. "We're learning about something called accountability." The word bumped clumsily against her tongue. She told me they wanted to apologize in person, preferably over dinner before the gala. Against my better judgment, or maybe because artists collect raw material like magpies collect foil, I agreed to meet at a neutral location, a tiny diner near the Charles River where no one wore badges except name tags that read "Hello, my name is." I arrived early, sketched steam curling off coffee mugs, and waited. They were 10 minutes late. When they walked in, Dad's posture seemed shorter, as if remorse had a gravitational pull. Mom clutched a book titled Siblings Without Rivalry, its pages bristling with fluorescent tabs. We ordered pie. Conversation tottered like a newborn fawn. Dad finally cleared his throat. What we did at Brian's wedding was unforgivable. He stared at the Formica tabletop. "I thought I was being funny," he added, sounding 80 instead of 58. Mom slid a small velvet pouch across to me. Inside was the badge, the plastic edges sanded smooth, encased in resin, transformed into a paperweight. She whispered, "We figured it should weigh on us instead." I rotated the resin block. The letters still screamed looser, but now they were museum fossils, distant, handleable. Part of me wanted to smash it. A larger part recognized the gesture for what it was: clumsy, late, and nevertheless real. We spoke for hours. I told them about the mural in Brian's closet, about every diminishment they likely never registered. Mom cried the silent kind of tears that run like ink through foundation. Dad asked whether I'd consider letting the past be a study rather than a sentence. I didn't answer then. Healing isn't a verdict. It's a long game of red light, green light. I did, however, agree to attend the anniversary gala, with conditions: no badge jokes, no impromptu tasks, and if anyone tried to belittle me, I reserved the right to leave without goodbye. The gala came mid-November, maple leaves slick on sidewalks like stained glass shards. Cedar Ridge Country Club sparkled with fairy-light netting, chandeliers tethered with crimson ribbon. I arrived alone, clutching a new painting rolled in protective tubing, a 30 by 40 canvas enclosed in brown craft paper. Inside, guests nibbled bacon-wrapped scallops beneath banners boasting Richard and Elaine, 35 years strong. When I walked in, hush cracked across the room. News of my wedding outburst had apparently aged into legend. Couples parted like curtains as I headed toward Brian, who wore a navy suit and hopeful eyes. He hugged me. "I deserved your words," he said quietly. "I'm trying to be better." I nodded, unsure how to respond, and offered the tube. "It's for Mom and Dad," I said. Brian took it with reverence. After dinner, the speech is mercifully short. Dad tapped a spoon against his glass. "Ethan has brought a gift," he announced, surprising me. An artwork he created for this occasion. 2 staff members unrolled the canvas on an easel near the head table. Gasps unfurled. The painting depicted 2 towering oak trees whose branches intertwined, forming a heart-shaped canopy. Beneath, a slender sapling pushed up, its leaves tinted with iridescent hues. But the ground around the sapling teemed with shadows, broken picture frames, fractured measuring sticks, shattered badges. At the bottom, I had painted a single sentence: "Let growth mean room, not comparison." Silence poured in like fresh cement. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad gripped the tablecloth. Brian exhaled something between a laugh and a sob. I waited, pulse hammering. Then Mom stood. She walked to the painting, traced the sapling with trembling fingers, turned to the crowd, and said, "We failed to give our youngest the sunlight he deserved." This is our reminder. She signaled the band. Play something uplifting, she called, voice steadier than her tears. They launched into a jazz rendition of Here Comes the Sun. Dad left the dais, approached me, and asked if I'd dance with Mom after he did. It was the simplest request. Astonishingly ordinary, and yet it felt like climbing a cliff. I said yes. When my turn came, Mom and I swayed beneath crystal droplets of light. She whispered, "You don't have to forgive us tonight, but thank you for giving us the chance to ask." Her grip was fragile but sincere. Later, by the coat check, Charlotte handed me a manila envelope. Inside were ultrasound photos of Grace. She'd written artistic guidance from day one. I smiled. Perhaps chapters could be revised without burning the book. Still, a few family friends attempted jokes, muted versions of the old script. One laughed about me trading paintbrushes for serving trays. I met his gaze unflinching. "Paintbrushes earn me more now," I said. Brian overheard and, to my surprise, interjected, "Ethan's piece is auctioned higher than my annual salary, so maybe ask him for career advice." The man blanched. Brian winked at me. A glitch in the matrix, small yet seismic. That night, driving back to Boston, I realized reconciliation isn't a single bridge. It's a series of stepping stones across shifting water. Some stones wobble, some fracture, and sometimes you choose to swim around them entirely. But movement, in any direction, beats standing on the shore rehearsing grievances. Winter settled. I painted feverishly, commuter gloves flecked with cerulean from sneaking brush sessions on the subway. Forge Gallery planned a duo show, pairing me with a sculptor who welded discarded electronics into biomechanical birds. We collaborated. Each stroke I paint spells freedom correctly, endlessly, every day. And that, I realize, is the true masterpiece, not the canvases I hang in galleries, but the life I've reclaimed, brushstroke by brushstroke, from the confines of other people's expectations. In the weeks that followed, I discovered that freedom isn't a destination but a constellation of small revolutions, each decision to trust my own instincts, each refusal to be small when the world expected me to shrink. I launched a community mural project on a forgotten alley wall not far from my loft, an evolving tower